So this video is going to be all about myofascial release of the pelvic floor. And I'm really excited because I got this great model, so it's going to be able to better explain to you guys, give you a better visual about what muscles we're trying to affect when we say the pelvic floor. So this is a female diaphragm that we're looking at. We can see that at the very top is the uterus and the fallopian tubes on either side of that. But the tube down from that is the vagina. If we pull that off, so that's at the very top of the bowl, directly in front of the pubic bone underneath the uterus is the bladder. So when the bladder fills and rises up, it actually tips the uterus back, just so that we understand the mechanics of what's happening. And then more deep to that, we have the rectum at the back of the pelvis. So the rectum runs along the sacrum, the coccyx, but also comes more to the left, so the inside of the ilium. That's going to be the sigmoid colon, where that comes up into. So just understanding how that wraps up and around. But this is the pelvic floor itself. So the important thing that we need to note when we're trying to stretch and release the pelvic floor is that we're trying to come in between these two ischial tuberosities, and then from the pubic bone all the way to the coccyx at the back. So whenever we place the ball for myofascial rolling and unwinding, it's going to be in between those two ischial tuberosities in order to infect the entire pelvic floor. Remember, the perineum is actually what we're trying to release, and the perineum is in between these two ischial tuberosities. And then if we draw a line going straight across here and then crossing it all the way to the pubic bone from the coccyx, that space in between the vagina and the anus, on the men, in between the scrotum and the anus, is the perineum. And that's what we're actually trying to roll and release. All right, so I'm just going to give you a few quick exercises, and then you can do them on your own. I recommend that you start with a smaller amount or shorter amount of time at the beginning, and then start to increase that. So 30 seconds maybe at the most to start, and then slowly increasing. Remember, again, if you feel pain, you're not going to continue with this. You're going to go see your family physician or doctor or OBGYN. You're going to go get some proper advice. But tenderness is okay. Like any other muscle on your body, when it becomes tight over a prolonged amount of time, it does need to be somewhat released. And so just like your bicep, if it got caught in contraction, we would push into that muscle to allow it to relax so that we could slowly take the arm back out. The same sort of thing. We're using the muscle spindles to relax and in order to release and stretch. So you're going to take the ball. I just went to the dollar store and got a ball. $1.49 I think it was, and you're going to place it, like I said, in between the ischial tuberosity, and then the pubic bone is at the front, so slightly come forward so that you're actually resting on that broad space in between. And it may feel uncomfortable or tender, and you're just going to sit there and wait a second. I recommend using a chair with arms so you can lift yourself up out of it if the tension is a little bit too much. And then once we're here and we're like, okay, everything feels soft and it's relaxing, we're gonna add a little bit of motion. So I'm not rolling forward and back. I'm actually tipping my pelvis. So I'm moving into posterior pelvic tilt and then an anterior pelvic tilt. So it's my pelvis that I'm moving forward and back. And then if after a couple times, I'm like, you know what, that doesn't feel too bad, then I'm gonna actually move into an oblique motion. So I'm just shortening my obliques side to side. So I'm not rolling side to side. I'm drawing up through my obliques. And again, just noticing, how does that feel? If I find an area that feels tender, maybe I'll just stay there and breathe. Remember, by using my breath, I'm facilitating that stretch from the inside. So working those two against each other. So if that doesn't feel too bad, maybe I'll progress to something a little more specific. So this covers a broad area. There won't be as much tension. If I want it to be a little bit more specific, I'm going to go to a bit of a smaller ball. Remember, these are air-filled balls, so there's not a lot of tension. There is some give to them. And again, I'm going to find that same area. So on a man, I'm putting it behind the scrotum and before the anus. in between the scrotum and the anus, toward the coccyx, the back of the body. For the woman, I'm putting it in between the pubic bone, so in between the vagina and again the anus. So sitting down, finding that area that feels somewhat tender, and this is a lot more specific. Simply sit there again, wait and see. And so the same motions. Once I start to feel things relaxing, I'm going to do that same pelvic tilt. Now it's going to be a lot smaller of a motion because the ball is smaller, the surface area is smaller. And then again, that side to side. And if I find an area that feels a little bit more restricted or tender, I might just simply stay there and breathe. Same thing. All right, so the last ball that I have is very small. Again, it's an air-filled ball. It's a lot smaller than the other two, a lot more specific. May need to hold yourself a little bit up out of it. Perfect, until the body can relax into it. And then the same thing. That small, remember the motion will be very small now, and that easy side to side motion. Perfect. All right, guys, so there's something for you to practice. Remember, this is for a hypertonic pelvic floor, which means it's very tight. And remember, we did our exercises at the beginning to distinguish whether we were looking at hypertonic or hypotonic, which is not tight at all. And in that instance, I would not want to be placing anything there. Thanks a lot, guys. Let me know how it goes.